Morning traffic through a border town in Texas marks the start of another work week in Del Rio, as travel to and from Mexico is routine for many workers. But away from the hustle of city life, hiding in thick brush and rocky terrain are reminders of a crisis that sadly seems to also be part of the schedule.
The Eagle Pass area covers about 39 miles of border. Right now we're averaging around 1,000 migrant apprehensions per day just in this area.
The Eagle Pass area is part of U.S. Customs and Border Protection's Del Rio patrol sector, one of 9 to make up the U.S.-Mexico land border, and the busiest for illegal crossings.
It does get tough day in and day out.
Alpha News rode along with patrol agent in charge of the station, Mickey Donaldson, to see for ourselves what agents encounter.
The pure volume of individuals coming across that border is something that we just haven't seen.
For perspective, 5 years ago, 1,300 illegal migrants would make it here in a year. Sometimes that many now arrive every day.
We just work under the policies and under the law that is on the books.
Nationally, border crossing encounters have climbed from 646,000 in 2020 to 2.7 million in 2 years.
¿Tiene familia aquí en los Estados Unidos, señor?
In the last fiscal year, agents in this sector alone arrested nearly 500,000 border crossers. Staggering numbers, and among them here more than 200,000 others that got away.
This is called the Lehman Ranch area, and this is where we had a large group of 381 migrants today. And one thing to look at is we're going to drive down to where they cross. It's about 2 miles from here. That entire area is how far they have to actually walk up. So that's something we like to show everyone is when you talk about the humanitarian factor. You know, in July, August, put yourself in Texas heat, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's 100 plus degrees here. We had groups of 500 plus walking up here. And when the migrants would make it up here, we already had 8 heat-related incidents. Areas where we're calling our Border Patrol EMTs in, we're calling local city ambulance in to take care of the migrants because it was just so hot.
We drive the steep, twisted road that migrants take to make it to our first stop.
And they walked from the river all the way up here.
Years ago, agents would look for footprints to track. Now the government has posted signs to show them where to go.
Trying to point the migrant in the right direction to walk. So we'll have infants with their parents or their aunts or their uncles. We've also had people cross that are 90 years old, that are on walkers, that are on wheelchairs, that had to be carried across, and we have to find a way to get them up here. They've been left stranded on the riverbank waiting for us to go and take care of them and rescue them.
The 2-mile trek leads us to that riverbank.
We're on the U.S. side. This is the Rio Grande River, Mexico right across. This is one of our busiest crossing points right now. We're seeing a lot of our large groups come up here. This is a private ranch in Eagle Pass. When you look at crossings, total crossings, we're looking at one of the busiest areas in the nation right now along the southern border.
Dirt roads near the river are piled with clothes and tangled in sea wire, a supposed security deterrent put up by the state of Texas.
So they'll have a bag of clothes that they keep that's dry. They make it across. They take off their wet clothes, put on their dry clothes, and then they'll start making their way up. I think you have to come down here and see it. It really opens your eyes. And you see what they leave behind, just the sheer amount of people that we're seeing every day.
And the peril the people who make it this far will face.
They'll be carrying large backpacks with a lot of their stuff in it, or they might be carrying one of their a kid on their shoulders. And the current's so fast, they'll make it to the river and then they'll run out of energy. And then they can't make it across. We have our airboats that will come out and try to make a rescue. So right now, as you see, the water's really calm. It's pretty low. During times when we have heavy storms, we'll see the water rise all the way to the top of those pillars right there. We'll actually have migrants holding on to that area because the water's so high and the current's moving so fast. All clear?
Near this bridge is where the Texas National Guard is holding 3 migrants who just arrived.
Buenos días. ¿De dónde son?
Yo dominicano y colombiano.
Colombia? ¿Y usted? Honduras. So Dominican, Colombia, and Honduran right here. 3 different nationalities that just made their way across. 3 meses. He left Dominican Republic about 3 months ago.
De Panamá, que la selva.
So he's got 3 kids. He doesn't have any work in Dominican, so he's coming to work and get a better life, basically.
Agent Donaldson asks where they're going.
Ellos. Boston? ¿Y usted? In Florida?
But he explains how the man from Honduras, in handcuffs due to Title 42, will be sent back. The policy automatically turns people from some countries away. Del Rio's border agents catch 200 what they call Title 42s every day. Yet a judge ruled that policy must end within weeks.
¿Tiene familia?
A short time later on our tour, agents spot another group of crossers, this time 15, 2 families who just made it to the U.S. side.
¿Dónde? En Arizona, ¿y ustedes? Florida. So they're Florida right there. Miami right here. Kentucky. Texas. So all over the country.
Border Patrol agents are spending about 60% of their time helping to process the people coming over the border. And it's those they are not catching due to those time constraints that seem to trouble them most.
The goal is to get as many agents out in the field as we can, so it's and catch the traffic that's trying to get away, not so much all the the give up traffic. The agents are very efficient, very good at organizing the group within single adult males, single adult females, nationality they are, family units, unaccompanied children. That way we're able to get them on one sheet of paper based on their demographic and get them on a bus and get them in there so that they can start off already ahead.
So what you see here is we have a 150,000 square feet facility. It's got all the service wraparounds.
Jose Tellez is the patrol agent in charge of the Southside processing facility where migrants are taken first.
On an average, we can intake here anywhere from 1,200 plus every day. We have contracted medical who does an initial assessment as they arrive. We have DHS volunteers from all over the nation supporting our mission here. They help us with the feedings and ensuring that we have enough supplies for all the migrants and to run the facility. We also have contracted security who help us with searches, and we also have contracted personnel who does data entry.
No outside video or photos are allowed inside, but these pictures provided to us show climate-controlled sleeping areas, washing machines, and processing computers to register and check people's backgrounds as best they can. Convicted sex offenders have been caught, along with drug smugglers. Eagle Pass agents arrested a Mexican national with this fentanyl and meth last month.
We capture biometrics. We also do facial recognition database. We do iris, basically an eye database that we search them through. Then we have another team of agents that are vetting every return. So we run this fingerprints and this facial recognition through several different databases. When that returns, then we are able to decide if we're able to keep them in this facility and process them through the current pathways here, or if it's a criminal or immigration history that we cannot keep them here, then we transfer them to another facility where we have other agents that will take care of that processing. Here, our facility is deemed a non-threat, non-criminal facility. So anybody that we house here, we vetted them through our systems and we make sure there's no criminal or no immigration history that would prevent for us to keep them here. Our goal is to get the migrants out of our custody within 72 hours. We've looked at every process from the time we accept the migrants here to the time that we turn them over to our sister agency, which is ICRO, so that they can finish the paperwork. And if the pathway is to release them to an NGO, they take care of that. So our average time in custody at this facility from the time of arrest all the way to the time that they are released or turned over to ERO is about approximately 30 hours.
Agent Tellez admits the last couple of years have been difficult for agents. Resiliency programs are offered to those working long hours to try to keep up with the crowds.
They understand that this is the direction that we're going right now, and they just adopt to it, and we just wait for the next group of people coming through. It's important for everybody to understand what's happening in the southwest border, so it is important for the story to make it out there.
As far as you're concerned, it deserves a lot more coverage.
Oh yeah, it deserves a lot more coverage. Like I said, what's happening here, I think it's a macrocosm of what's going to come to every neighborhood in the United States if it hasn't come already yet.
Auden Cabello is able to speak a bit more freely on the border crisis. A professional photographer turned citizen journalist, his work has documented the dark reality.
Right behind us is the Rio Grande River, and then this black fence is the President Bush wall, and right to my side is President Trump's wall. It's a big difference in height and structure. Jokingly, I'd say also behind me is Biden's wall. You can't see it because it's non-existent. That's what's led to this border crisis that we're currently living. There is no wall, there is no border. That's why we have this constant influx of migrants crossing on a daily basis.
Cabello is a U.S. citizen who married a woman from Mexico 7 years ago. Paperwork problems meant her green card was denied.
At the time, we had to relocate to Mexico on the Mexican side because my wife could no longer be in the U.S. legally. So when we were ready to file, that's when COVID hit and everything was shut down. So we had to wait. So after COVID and all the offices reopened, we filed again. So right now we're in process for our second time to get her green card.
You've been waiting for years and people are coming over illegally daily.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, being the advantage, what I've gotten out of this is that being on the Mexican side, living there, on the border. I've been documenting these 5 years how migrants are just crossing the border illegally and making it into the U.S. From a personal perspective, it just seems unjust, immoral. U.S. citizen having to wait in Mexico to get my wife and family over into the U.S. legally, yet at the same time, on a daily basis, there's thousands coming across the border, entering illegally and getting a free pass into the country. The question is, where's the justice in all this? Obviously, the whole process is broken down. I think it should be easier for me and difficult for those that are entering the country illegally. And I'm just one case. There's hundreds of similar cases all along the border, friends, family that are going through the same situation.
Still, it is the life and death struggle he posts on social media he believes is more deserving of the spotlight.
So this is the cemetery in Eagle Pass, Texas. And the story there is that on my social media, I would constantly get messages from family members saying, we have no clue, we're missing a family member. So I started digging into how I could help them, or what was the process for them to reach out to either the consulate, the sheriff's office, funeral home, somebody in Eagle Pass so they could get information. So I went personally to Eagle Pass, and that's how I ended up at the cemetery. When I showed up at the cemetery, there was 21 crosses made out of PVC piping, and on the names it had John Doe, Jane Doe, baby John Doe, and these were all migrants that had died either at the river or on private property and could not be identified. So now they're having to use a refrigerator truck to store the bodies. And this is another aspect of having open borders, the record number of migrant deaths that are happening. It's a sad thing, but at the same time, I think it's underreported by the media. Talking to migrants, especially the female migrants, is one price that they're having to pay is getting raped. And they're willing to pay that price, so they'll prepare for it mentally and physically. And what you'll see also is what's come to be known as rape trees. And this is where the smugglers will rape the migrants, and they'll hang their bras or underwear on the tree as a trophy saying, this is where I raped a migrant. Another sad part or aspect of this border crisis that I think gets underreported as well. So emotionally, it's taken a toll. I do talk to the migrants on the Mexican side prior to them crossing, and I do come over and talk to them once they've crossed and they've been processed, and just getting information of who they are, where they're coming from, how their journey was, hearing their experiences, all the hardships they went through. From a human toll, it's very sad what they're willing to risk to come to this country and supposedly live the American dream. It's a humanitarian crisis that rarely gets covered.
But it's fair to say without a lot of your footage, people wouldn't know this was...
Correct.
What fixes this?
I think the one tool that's very effective is deportations. I saw it when we had the camp underneath our international bridge with the Haitians. As soon as the Biden administration started deporting the Haitians, the flow immediately stopped. So I think if any administration wants this fixed, deportation is the number one tool to use. What's happening here is going to come to your neighborhood sooner or later. Communities all over in the U.S., we're hearing of drug overdoses, crime rates going up, and I think it's directly tied to what's happening here on the border.
And if something doesn't change?
If something doesn't change, I think eventually this country could collapse. I do see it, because I don't see how it can sustain so many people. What was it? Over 2 million migrants that crossed this prior fiscal year. How much resources does the country have to support all these migrants?
It's a dire warning.
It is. It's damaging the country. I don't see the country being able to sustain it much longer.